Hello and welcome to Can't Polish the Timelord with me, Alex Leam, and also Allan, Lear, and Micheal, Legge. Hello, guys.
Hello, sir. I'm really impressed with the opening credits. If there's one thing I cannot bear, it's people spelling my name correctly. So it was really good to see it spelt wrongly in the opening credit. And don't you dare change that in some sort of edit, because I'll be very upset. It won't be canon as far as I'm concerned.
Well, this is interesting because I've got a funny feeling the end credits are just the same as well.
Right?
Should we take a sneak peek at those?
Oh, yes, please.
Why not? Just see if I've buggered both of them up.
No.
Do you know what the sad thing is?
What was great about that is showing the end credits so early. What's great about that is that gives us every fucking reason to just walk out at any point. We might not have made it to the end, and we know what happens now, so we can leave at any moment.
Do you know what the real tragic thing is? It
gives the impression of us being much pithier than we actually are in our disputes.
The real tragic thing is that I even double checked your Twitter account to see how your name was spelt.
Right. But
I still managed to get it wrong.
No, I like it. I hate people spelling my name correctly.
Unfortunately, it's spelt correctly on your little logo thing there. But
yeah. Well, I mean, that's me being ironic.
Fair enough.
Okay. Well, I've lost.
The annoying thing is that you've got my name right, and my name is actually spelt incorrectly, whereas Michael's is spelt Michael.
Good. Well, in that case, we will start with Michael. Not that I'm trying to curry back some sort of favour from him.
Would you like me to spell my own name wrong, and then we can edit all this out?
If you like, no, it's all staying in. We've seen what happens when I try and apply effort. So I'm just gonna leave it as is.
It's like Colin Powell. Do you know Colin Powell?
Yeah.
You know his name is Colin Powell, but in the army, his whoever drill sergeant, I don't know. I don't really know about the army, but he was referred to as Colin Powell, and he just went along with it for years. Just went, well, I'm not correcting it because we're too scared, and because of that he became Colin Powell. So, I mean, I'm happy to go with Micheal Legge. I can do with a change.
Okay. Cool. Well, in this show,
you could do a Stuart Lee-style character comedy where Micheal Legge is just very slightly different to Michael Legge.
Yeah, he really is.
I've got a funny feeling 20 minutes is going to go past, and I'm not going to claw this back.
Because here's the thing, Michael Legge absolutely loves his name being spelt wrong, but Micheal Legge hates it.
I get the feeling he's got a really thin moustache that he waxes like an evil.
But it's not under his nose. Ugh, no. It's awful. Don't ask where it is. But he twirls it.
He twirls it still, like a baton. Okay. So, welcome to Can't Polish the Timelord with Micheal Legge and Allan Lear. In this show, imagine that the BBC is having another purge of its archives, and certain Doctor Who stories are for the chop. So Micheal and Allan are here to argue the toss to save some of these stories that have been trashed otherwise by the fandom. And we're going to start this episode with Micheal. So Micheal, what is your first choice?
As you know, we've got a choice of 3. And I'm going to let you, in a way, choose which one I'm going to go first. Should we go really positive? Should we go quite positive? Or should we go... It's up to you.
I quite like
Should we start quite positive?
I don't know. I quite like the... That appeals to me right now. Let's go there. Let's start off with that.
Okay, then let's start with the Doctor Who episode called Arachnids in the UK. Now, let me start by defending it by saying it is crap. It's shit. I mean, it's There is bad acting throughout from the supporting cast, most of the supporting cast, not all of the supporting cast. I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you the problem with it. First and foremost, is the writing. The writing is bad. It is written by Chris Chibnall, who should go to jail. He shouldn't be allowed a crayon. He should, because he'll write with it. Don't give him any object that he can write with at all. He shouldn't be allowed to, because he cannot write. So he shouldn't be allowed to do it. And there he is. With this, I think, a great actor, Jodie Whittaker, who has not got a defined character in Doctor Who. And she's doing her best with this shit script after shit script after shit script. And in this episode, she acts like a Time Lord. She acts like the Doctor. She's the Doctor. It's not just in the fucking end title saying Jodie Whittaker, the Doctor. She's the Doctor in this episode. When everyone else is going, hey, bad gum, do you see this? Look at the state of our state. And just doing that ham northern acting. She's just there going, well, if everyone else can't say these terrible lines, I'm going to have to say these terrible lines. And she does it with... Do you remember, like, in the old days, men? Do you remember the old days when we'd watch Classic Who and we'd see the terrible scripts, and yet our leading actor was always just saying the lines the way they should be said? It's the same with Jodie Whittaker. She's a fucking brilliant Doctor. If only Chris Chibnall would get into some sort of, I don't know, concrete box and somehow get that concrete box to live at the bottom of the sea. That I'm saying he would be contributing finally to the good production of Doctor Who. So let's look at the positives. Well, we've got Jodie Whittaker. Secondly, it's got a moment in it that is, I think, key to Doctor Who. It's got a classic, scary moment that must have freaked kids out. It must have. That moment in it, I don't know if you know this episode. Oh my God. The story's phenomenal. If you don't know the story, here is the story. Giant spiders have taken over an entire flat in Sheffield. Now, if anyone gives a fuck about that, we continue on. And we see a woman who is completely cocooned in spider webs. She's been mummified in spider webs. And, you know, firstly, you go, oh, that looks really scary. If I had a child, I'd be worried about them freaking the fuck out. I imagine children did freak the fuck out. But, of course, we know it's New Who, so we know it's not Classic Who, and somehow that woman who's been completely cocooned by spider, she's going to be fine. No, she's dead. And they said, by the way, she's dead. Like, oh, this is actually quite good. And anyway, that's the good part. That's the good part of this entire story. It's the good part of this entire story. Jodie Whittaker does her best to keep everything sort of together. But as soon as you see the villain, not the spiders aren't really villains. They're just, you know, they're just spiders doing spider things. They can't help it. But the villain is Trump. Do you remember a few years ago we were a bored census of Trump already? Well, that's when Chris Chibnall went, do you know who'd make a good villain? Is it the guy who's the actual villain in real life? Yeah. And he's so boring with it. Trump's third line is, you're fired. That's how boring it is, right? Anyway, I watched this when it went out originally, whenever it was, 2 years ago. And I thought, yeah, that's going to be one of my picks for today. I've only seen it once. I hated it. So what I'll do is I'll rewatch it because I've got a plan for this episode. I've got a plan. All three of my choices are from New Who. They're not from Classic Who because I've been thinking about it. I think if any episode at all from Classic Who, at all, even my favorite one from Classic Who, if it was deleted, I wouldn't care. I absolutely would get on with my life. Oh, have they deleted Blink? Oh, well, I've seen loads of. I'll get on with life. If they delete any of Classic Who, I'll fucking burn their houses down, okay? If they touch a hair on Peter Davidson's hair, I will burn their house down. But Trump's in it. He basically, he's not even a villain in it. He's just sort of like a guy that goes around going, oh, I've got lots of money, and there are spiders, and there's a spider in one of my hotels, and you never really figure out what the connection is, or else I didn't, because I gave up at 24 minutes and 5 seconds in, because I just couldn't. I wanted to rewatch it, but I couldn't get any further because I kept seeing Jodie Whittaker drowning in shit. And she's great, and I never want to watch that woman drown and die. That's why I think it should be saved.
Okay, well, lots to unpack. Lots to unpack from that. I love your tactic of if any of your choices do get deleted, whatever. Alan, Alan, your thoughts, having heard the spirited defence for arachnids in the UK.
Well, I mean, I can't stop thinking about the idea Micheal proposed very early on about Chris Chibnall going to prison. I think it would necessarily have to be some form of solitary confinement or supermax prison, because otherwise all I can picture is Chris Chibnall in the prison workshop melting a razor blade into a toothbrush so that he can spend the evening hacking something that he thinks is dialogue into his own abdomen. That aside, the spirited defence, arachnids in the UK, first up, I mean, it's so obvious that Micheal hasn't even said it. Arachnids in the UK is the worst fucking pun I have ever. It's like somebody translated it into Mandarin and then into binary and then back to German before Google put it back into English. That's how bad it is as an attempt at getting two homophones together. The bad guy, Trump, who also isn't Trump because Trump is mentioned by name, I know. I mean, what? And he's played by Mr. Big from Sex and the City, who looks like the poor man's Peter Serafinowicz. He looks almost exactly like if Peter Serafinowicz had his sense of humour surgically removed and grafted onto his ex-brother-in-law Graham Linehan, so that moron would stop being a twat all over the internet. That is what Peter Serafinowicz would look like. I absolutely agree with what Micheal said in defense of Jodie Whittaker. Jodie Whittaker does her absolute best with the nothing she's got. But a lot of the fans complained about arachnids in the UK because the Doctor's solution to the spiders is to kill them all, which they thought was not terribly doctory solution. As Micheal hinted at, I'm not sure where the peril actually comes from, because as you say, it's one flat in Sheffield, and Sheffield is a university town. I've lived in halls, they all look like that. My second year at university, the kitchen literally had mushrooms growing up the wall, and we spent most mornings debating on whether or not it was time to shave them off and have them for breakfast so we could save them for some money for wine. So I don't really think it's as much a problem as it's made out to be. I find arachnids in the UK to be singularly lacking in merit, other than that provided by, say, the Doctor and Bradley Walsh.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I should have said Bradley Walsh is also great.
Just from what you're saying there, it's got a vision of a future villain being far too much washing being left in the bowl, from what you're talking about, the state of student flats. The flat that I lived in Bournemouth, one of my flatmates, his great solution to clearing the washing down was to put it in a bin bag and put it under the sink. And I didn't realise until about 3 weeks later. Where's that smell coming from? It was the dirty dishes that were in a bin bag under the sink. So with what we've been saying about Chris Chibnall, I mean, my thought is that he hasn't bothered to actually, like you say, Miguel, he hasn't actually made a character for Jodie. He's still, in my mind, writing for David Tennant and Matt Smith. It feels like he's trying to shoehorn a lot of. There's elements of.
He's writing. You're right. He's not writing badly for Jodie Whittaker. He's writing badly for those two. Yeah.
And And as a result, there seems to be sort of like elements of Tennant and Smith that she's trying to bring into the character. But again, nothing new. And it feels like she's been badly let down by somebody I had high hopes for, because I enjoyed the first series of Broadchurch, not the second. That was awful. So what do we think happened with regards to Chris Chibnall? Do you think he just went too fanboyish when he got the job and forgot that he was actually supposed to be writing?
The problem with
no, after you, Alan, because you will definitely know more than me.
Well, the thing is that Chris Chibnall's always been shit. The first two series of Torchwood were his; they were shit. As you say, the writing of the current Doctor is shit. The Power of Three, which he wrote, which is the one with Stephen Burkoff, is shit. It's a terrible. It starts with a brilliant premise. 60 whatever it is, 6 billion black cubes appear all over the world. And then what happens? A Shakespearean actor for no reason. That's terrible. And it ends with that awful fucking anime style speech from Amy Pond. He wrote Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, which is the most anti-Semitic episode of Doctor Who I've ever seen.
Solemn.
Not only. Solemn. Oh, the guy who is a rapacious profiteer who cares nothing for morality and everything for money. He's called Solomon. And by the way, it's all right for the Doctor to murder Solomon because he's not really a person, because all he cares about is money. Fucking hell. I don't know what Micheal and Webb were doing in that fiasco. I'm going to have to ask them. So I don't think Chibnall has ever done anything that wasn't bollocks, with, as you say, the exception of the first series of Broadchurch, which isn't science fiction. He also did, fuck him.
In defense, fuck him. Yeah,
fuck him.
I like the spirit fizzled out with that. I just don't care anymore. No, it's just bump him off. I'll think for my final ruling for Arachnids in the UK. I wanted to like it more than what it was, essentially. Plagued by a lot of problems in that first series. Too many companions, not enough characterization. I think, however, in terms of Who history and Who lore, that a lot could be learnt from that, as in to say, yeah, sure, we can do all of these things with comments on modern society and special effects. Doesn't mean that we should, though. So I think if we deleted it, we would lose a stepping stone of what not to do. So for that in mind, I will rule that Arachnids in the UK is safe. So
why is the adjudicator putting up a more spirited defence than the actual Defence Council? What is that?
Is this how
kangaroo court, mate?
Is this how Olympic athletes feel when they win? Do they just feel nothing? Because I got that through, and
I think it's this stage of lockdown 3. No one has any feeling anymore. I have to prick myself with a fork just to make sure I'm still ticking over.
Oh, well, then I recommend watching Arachnids in the UK, because 24 minutes in, you go, oh, for fuck's sake, and you at least feel something, mate.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks,
well,
Chris,
that's one saved. So Micheal is on 1. Allan is going to present his case for his first one now. So, Allan, which one would you like to try and save?
Well, I'm going to do mine in chronological order, I think. All of mine have been suggested by members of our Facebook group. Adrian Davis, Joshua Griggs, and Jason, somebody or other. Sorry, Jason, I've forgotten your surname. They've suggested The Mutants, Twin Dilemma, and The Battle of Rimsky-Korsakov. So I'm going to start with The Mutants, if I may, which is a John Pertwee. Okay. People who haven't seen The Mutants, basically what happens is the bloke from Monty Python runs up at the start and goes, "It's," and then you get a story about how colonization is extremely bad, and how basically people should be left alone. What's interesting is when I was kind of researching this, according to Wikipedia, the story was supposed to have anti-racism themes, but the BBC nixed that, which is very, if you watch it, it is all about how the English buggered over to other places, fucked those places up, and then went, we're leaving now, but we've given you democracy. All right, so don't forget to lick our asses on the way out. There's absolutely nothing in it that suggests that colonization has in any way been a good thing for the planet in question. And it's in that respect, it's very kind of 1960s hippie-ish kind of vibe, I guess, and quite sort of forward thinking. It was anti-colonial before we'd even finished giving up all of the colonies, I strongly suspect. I think some of them were still hanging in there, you know, the British Virgin Isles or whatever. Of course, the Commonwealth was in full flow. So it was very kind of progressive in that respect. And it's quite interesting to see John Pertwee, who was quite an authoritarian figure in his way, taking the side of the oppressed rather than the government of oppressors, which is, you know, not necessarily something you'd associate with such a patriarchal figure. It's also notable because, no, I'm sorry, I've just made that up off the top of my head, and I'm thinking of the twin dilemma, so scrap that. It's called the mutants because what happens is the local tribe of, what are they called, solenoids or something, have a mutant reaction to the onset of spring on their planet, which transforms them from your basic humans to men in cockroach outfits. And they wander around in this carapace of kind of foam rubber and hooks off coat hangers for their hands, which seems like a step in the wrong direction to me, but I'm not an evolutionary biologist, so what do I know? And they're beautifully evolved, these carapace people, because it makes it very hard for them to get through doors. So when they're running away from the colonists with guns, it's like that bit in The Simpsons where Homer steals a parade float and revs it up to 5 miles an hour, and the principal is going, "Stop him! He's making a very slow getaway." It's exactly like that, and beautiful to watch. You thought the stormtrooper hitting his head on a door was an example of what goes wrong with costumes and set design, but they are genuinely the clumsiest monsters I've ever seen, and as a result, they're beautiful to watch in action. The monster actors doing their absolute damnedest to fit these lumbering articles through the various doorways and things. Jeffrey Palmer is in it, and he dies, so good preparation for real life there. Yeah. In general, quite good. I don't see why people have a problem with it. It's only 5 episodes. It doesn't outstay its welcome particularly, and it's got a strong, subtext, if not a strong plot. So I enjoyed it actually. I don't see why there seems to have been a problem with it.
So the subtext a little more subtle and less on the nose than "This is Trump Mark II." Who can't get his words out properly.
A little bit, yes, yeah. It kind of is very much kind of in British Empire bad, independence good. So it's not terribly subtle, but at least there are no kind of real people. At least kind of there isn't Winston Churchill cockroach starving 3 million of the solenoids to death just because he needs the food for Earth. But it's not hugely subtle. And it's Katie Manning, and Katie Manning is always good value. John Pertwee could always act. The acting is good. Jeffrey Palmer could act. The acting's of a good quality as a whole, especially compared to some of the stuff that I'm going to mention later. So, yeah,
okay,
good story. Don't see why I was asked to defend it. It stands on its own merits, I think.
While I process the thought of Winston Churchill cockroach, we'll come on to Michael. Have you seen The Mutants?
I have seen The Mutants.
So, where do you stand?
Well, my memory of it isn't that strong. It would be quite a while since I've seen it. But here's the thing. Perhaps, Alan, you can fill us in a moment what the cliffhangers were. That always helps jog my memory about the whole thing. But hang on. Here's why I would defend this along with Alan. Anytime I see classic Who, and the monsters are sort of daft and the costumes are a bit not so good. I instantly fall in love with it, which is the weirdest sort of thing because nothing winds me up more than comedies making fun of Doctor Who, and that's the avenue they go down. It's weird how taking the piss out of that is almost impossible to do. It's like, well, that's not funny. And yet when they do it for real, it's always fun and funny. I don't know why in comedy they can't go, oh, let's take the piss out of Doctor Who. How should we do it? Should we do it accurately? Oh, that really is the road we should go down. We should do it as it was rather than go, can you imagine? We don't need to imagine. They were really good at it. Anyway, if basically the Mutants has enough of that in it, I'm on board.
Okay. Is there anything glaring with regards to the Mutants from the outset where you just kind of think, oh, yeah, I can see why people would want that deleted? Is there anything that could be picked at here?
Do you know, I honestly don't see it. It's the sets are nicely designed. There's exterior location shooting. There's you can't go out on the planet during the day because of the way the natural gases react with the sunlight to make them poisonous to humans. So, but not the solenoids. So there's a sense of inbuilt peril. And when Jo Grant goes missing and she's dragged outside, there's a ticking clock as to how long she can survive in the natural gases and what have you. So I honestly don't see why people have an issue with it. The only thing I can think of is that the person who suggested this for defense was wrong.
Could be.
Well, that seems pretty absolute. I mean, there's of all the other ones on the list, there is something in my mind where I think, oh yeah, I can see why people would want to scratch that from the record forever. But I mean, I'm fond of the Purge era. I can only look back on that era as a classic time. So no, I don't think there's any good reason why it should be deleted. So I think the Mutants is officially saved. So that's one all. So that's one apiece.
I'm not saying it's a standout episode, but it's not. You've seen much worse than the Mutants.
Yes. Oh yes. So the Mutants is saved. It's one apiece. Michael, it's back to you. Where are we going next?
Okay, we're keeping positive.
Okay.
Oh no, hang on. We haven't done positive yet. My idea of positivity, I've just realised, is putting Chris Chibnall in a concrete box and putting it in the bottom of the sea. That's right.
I think there are many Doctor Who fans who would consider that a positive step. Yeah,
kids, that's not positive. That's not positive. But we're going to go with positive. I'm going to go with next victory of the Daleks. Let's see how well this goes down. Now.
How strange! Winston Churchill cockroach makes an appearance.
Exactly. I was thinking that too.
Yeah. Winston Churchill cockroach, you are drunk. But Bessie, after a nuclear war, I'll survive. Sorry, crack on.
Do you know what? I liked it. It was a self-contained sketch. I enjoyed it. Now, here's the thing. When this episode aired for the very first time, I remember quite liking it. And then my Doctor Who friends, I went, oh God, did you see it? Wasn't it shit? And I said it was shit, but I didn't mean it. I just went along. All of a sudden, it was, the early 90s again. And people were going, oh my God, have you heard Suede? Aren't they shit? Yeah, they are shit. They're brilliant. I love them. Look, I've got a picture of them right there. It was that all over again. I just sort of went with my peers and just went, I haven't seen it in a very long time, but my memory is relatively strong on that episode, and I still think it's really good. It's really fun, and it's one of those episodes that is clearly, let's face it, for all the family, not just New Who does. Hey, it's getting a bit dark. And then you sort of go, well, this is probably why it's not really working, because it's not supposed to go particularly dark. It's supposed to be for a family audience. And sometimes when it loses that family feel. I sort of go,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm into this either. But
yeah, it's because they never scary, they never, not bleak.
Right, exactly. And it's one of those things we go, oh, that's interesting. It's getting dark. But it won't go dark for adult dark. It'll go kid. And I just go, yeah, I think kids dark is actually quite boring. I mean, for kids and anyway, that's a whole other thing. This episode is fun. Doctor Who has, many times used all different genres. I like the genre they used this time. It's British propaganda movie where everyone who is English is a hero. And it turns out Scottish this time. Everyone who's British, put it this way, is a hero. And guess what? There's only one person in it who isn't British. And he's the one that's causing trouble. Oh, that doctor. Why doesn't he like our lovely new Ironsides? Why is he fucking them with a big spanner? But he is. Anyway, this is what I love about the idea of Doctor Who visiting British propaganda, because then you get proper British, polite Daleks with good manners that offer you tea. All of a sudden, their suction cups go upwards so they can carry a little tray. How British? Isn't that good? We've got these killing machines. Are they British? Oh, yes. And they're really servitude? We know that before we know the killing. Oh, we made sure they're basically slaves before we did anything else. And it's so brilliantly pantomime as well. Like, we are the audience. We are watching it. We know the Doctor's right. Even Amy doesn't know the Doctor's right, because for some reason Amy has totally forgotten about the invasion of the Daleks and the Cybermen. I can't even remember how that works itself out, but I knew that.
It's a crack in the wall.
Yes, there's probably a crack in the wall, isn't there? Probably. And I love any Doctor Who where the Doctor is the bad guy and the monsters are the good guys. That's what I love. I love the idea of a Dalek going, "Can I be of assistance?" Brilliant. While the Doctor is, it's not just a little spanner. He's getting him with a big spanner in the face. And everyone else, this is how British it is standing around letting him do it. Going, "Doctor, do you want to put that spanner down?" "No, don't." "Well, it'll be finished in a moment, darling." It's this is probably the best. But sorry, it's my phone ringing. It's probably my agent.
Please. We will point out at this stage that this recording was delayed because Michael had a proper job. That's how in demand he is.
Oh yeah, that's true. I did. I mean, that's a fluke. That was an accident. Here's my favorite part of Victory of the Daleks, and this is why I think it should be saved. It's clever. Might not look that clever at first, but it is very clever. The Daleks are pretending to be nice. So they're liars as well as everything else, right? They're pretending to be nice so they can lure the Doctor to World War II era London, to the cabinet war rooms, and that's when they're going to kill him. How are they going to kill him? Are they going to hit him with their lasers? No. They're going to get Hitler to kill him. That's right. The Daleks went, "Well, we've tried loads of times and we've failed. Who's good? Hitler's good. Let's get Hitler in. Let's get Hitler in to kill him." The upside of Victory of the Daleks are brilliant. I think they're close to being the best ever Daleks. More Daleks with a Union Jack on it. They're basically, they've got that nice, that nice khaki sort of Lambretta color. He looks like you could ride around in a Dalek. They're brilliant Daleks. The downside, they're the shittest Daleks. Then these other Daleks turn up, new, improved. They're awful. They're the worst Daleks. Look how brightly colored we are. You look like you should be in a kid's ball sort of center place, whatever those called. I don't have children or balls, so I don't really know. One of those bastards. They're terrible. Put that in the bin. Thank you. Do you know what? I feel a lot better now.
I will rescue that the instant that we go off air. What was the specific points that your friends were talking about with regards that they think that this episode sucked? What were
I just think that, oh, wasn't it stupid to have the Daleks being all, polite? And I was like, well, if here's my defense of that. The very first time that you ever saw the Daleks, it might have been the first Dalek episode, the second Dalek episode, but it was very early on, the very first Dalek story. A Dalek says to the Doctor and the rest of the Doctor's companions, a Dalek goes, "Would you like some fresh fruit and vegetables?" So they've got it in them. They've got it in them. They basically, the Dalek serving tea is canon.
Yes, and also
they couldn't see that
with Patrick Troughton's first story because they were being sneaky bastards then as well.
Oh
being
yeah,
all nice and lovely on a space colony.
Yeah, they're not to be trusted in a way.
Honestly, the more you hear about Daleks.
Right.
Allan, your take on Victory of the Daleks? Would you be happy if it was deleted forever, or would you like it saved?
I mean, Michael's kind of got me over a barrel here because the thing about the Victory of the Daleks is it's really good. It's put me in the rather awkward position of not really being able to pick at it. I mean, Ian McNeice is great as Churchill. The way they cram all the wartime paraphernalia into it, so you end up with Spitfires in space. That was. I'm not especially patriotic, but you couldn't help but feel a little thrill when the Spitfires were taking on the Daleks. That was marvelous. I love those designs of Dalek. I love that because the Daleks aren't supposed to be an aesthetic race, so I like the clunky industrial design far more than the bendy new paradigm soft play area things that Michael described. You can tell, even though, as you say, they've tried their hardest to ingrain the class system into Daleks, which, already existed because of the black and the red and what have you. You can tell they're not quite properly English because when the Doctor hits one with a spanner, it doesn't apologise. So they're not
Didn't hit it hard
quite
enough.
there. That was probably my fault. I'll go away. They're not quite there. So there's a hint of their resilience to their resistance to indoctrination there. But it's. I mean, I think Mark Gatiss wrote this one, didn't he? And you can tell he's a comedy writer as well because he's clearly just having fun with it. There's very little fun in the way of dark and bleak there. I think.
Apparently, when he was writing
negative to say about Victory of the Daleks. I don't know.
When he was writing it, he wrote it for John Pertwee because at the time they still hadn't cast Matt Smith, so he had no idea who he was writing for. So he just said, "Oh, pick your favourite Doctor."
That right?
Yeah, so he wrote it as if John Pertwee was doing the episode. Then just made the odd dialogue change when he saw what Matt Smith was all about.
Was doing. Okay, that's
Pertwee would
it
fuck
builds
with a
nicely on. Yeah, well, it builds nicely on the previous New Who Doctor's relationship with the Daleks, with Christopher Eccleston's outright hatred and loathing of them that is only very slightly softened by David Tennant. The fact that is the Doctor's first reaction is to attack a Dalek says an awful lot about how much this character still hates and fears them. I honestly can't think of a thing that's wrong. Maybe if I went back and revisited it now, the special effects wouldn't quite hold up. I don't know, but I don't know that I'd care.
No,
it's Mark Gatiss's episodes tend to get slagged off more in New Who than other people's for some reason, and I don't know why. Is there anything that springs to mind that might single him out?
What are his episodes?
A slightly annoying habit. Sorry?
What are his episodes?
Crimson
Horror. He has a slightly annoying habit of inserting himself in everything he writes because he plays Dr. Lazarus, doesn't he, in that Scorpion?
Right, I thought he wrote that.
And he's always
and he was Danny Boy.
But he wrote Idiot's Lantern, which I Yeah, I like Idiot's Lantern. I know people moan about it. I don't know
it's really
why.
good. It's really good.
Yeah, I like it. It's scary. Maureen Lipman's scary. And
she's terrifying in everything, especially real life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but Greg Davis, the comedian, used to be in a sketch troupe called We Are Clang. And they did an episode on conspiracy theories in which they claimed that Brian Blessed was the Yeti and that Maureen Lipman was the third gunman who shot JFK. And it's just Greg Davis there going, she's an angry woman, but an excellent shot.
That's one of those things that could sound quite plausible, like when they say Bob Holness played the saxophone in Baker Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did he?
No,
he was also the first James Bond.
Yes. But he was the first James Bond. He never played saxophone.
No. I think it was Stuart McConey that started that in a column. I think it was NME or something like that, where it's like plausible urban myths. Let's see if this spreads, and that one caught on. Yeah. Anyway, we digress massively. So, Victory of the Daleks, which I loved that on its first time out. And it was still a time when Stephen Moffat was doing little linking bits at the end of each episode that then put you on to the next one. So there's a great scene where Amy answers the TARDIS phone and goes, "It's the Prime Minister. Which one? Oh, which one?" I think that it's just a great time, I think, for the show. And I don't think there was anything wrong with that episode. People slag off the new Paradigm Daleks, but I didn't care. They didn't get me that angry. So I think for all the above reasons, I think Victory of the Daleks is safe. So that one's staying in. Michael, you're on 2 for 2. Yes. And Alan, your next choice. What's next?
The next suggestion I received was The Twin Dilemma, which is Colin Baker's first full episode as the Doctor. And as became common during the later stages of Classic Who, the regeneration has somewhat addled Colin Baker's mind, and the character vacillates between the kind of pompous but capable Doctor that we all came to associate with him, and a sort of psychopathic brutality, and even more a kind of crushing, vertiginous fear of the size and extent of the universe he finds himself in. And Christopher Eccleston will go on to explain that the Time Lords are capable of sensing a greater scale of the universe than humans are. When he does that wonderful speech with Rose about feeling the spin of the planets and what have you, and you get the sort of the genesis of that is in Colin Baker's moment of existential crisis in the TARDIS wardrobe room. But basically the plot of The Twin Dilemma, for those who haven't seen it, is that an elderly man kidnaps identical twins for a space threesome, and Kevin McNally attempts to stop him. The twins, who are annoyingly rotocistic in the way they speak, they can't pronounce their R's, which is only made worse by the fact that for some reason they're named after Romulus and Remus, presumably their parents being in the very thin Venn diagram of people who've heard of Romulus and Remus but don't know how that story ends. So they irritate their way around the universe solving mathematical equations. The elderly man turns out to be a Time Lord, and they're all after stopping a bloke whose grand plan, now this is actually an amazing grand plan. His grand plan is his species have laid a load of eggs or something, but his eggs can only be germinated by the heat of a supernova. So what he's going to do is he's going to blow up a star. The explosion is going to send his germinating eggs all over the galaxy. They're going to land on various different planets and various different suns, and then they'll hatch and then they'll conquer the galaxy, which is great because it takes its basic premise from the actual life cycle of, I think it's the Californian redwood, whose seed cases are so hard they can only be broken open by the heat of a forest fire, and that's how they germinate. Forest fires amongst the small saplings and undergrowth, underbrush in those big Californian redwood forests heat the the redwood seed cases put moten, and then there's a clearing all around where the underbrush is died out, where the redwood has room to grow up into the canopy. So that actually a moment of genuine scientific representation in Doctor Who, much better than in Orphan 55, where they forget that trees breathe oxygen. So they go, oh, there's no oxygen, but there's trees, because trees make oxygen. Yes, but they also... Oh, so, yeah, anyway. So the twin dilemma. Now, the reason the twin dilemma gets a lot of stick from fans, I think, is because of the volatility of Colin Baker's Doctor. And the nadir of that, many people would say, is the scene where he turns on Peri and strangles her. Now, I'd like to say, firstly, that Colin Baker acts it extremely well, because I've had drunks turn on me like that, and it is very, very, like, you know, Colin Baker... stone cold sober, as far as I can tell, doing a nasty drunk suddenly turning on you. He does it brilliantly. And then he throttles Peri. And the thing is, I think what's happened there is that Colin Baker, being, as Big Finish listeners will attest, one of the quintessential Doctors, has correctly identified the fact that an American accent in the TARDIS is an abomination. And he's attempting to beat it out. I think his choice there is utterly defensible. And the other thing, as I say, this episode is blessed with a good supporting cast, including Kevin McNally, who, of course, has gone on to be a proper movie star. He's the second in command in all the Pirates of the Caribbean films these days, and he was also Hancock in the Lost Half Hours, along with Robin Sebastian, who does an excellent kind of film. Kevin McNally is a great guy. He gave us a little video clip for our recent Doctor Who festival, as I think you'll know. And, fun fact, he collects space-flown objects. He has a collection of pens and pencils and things that the Russians and the Americans took to space in their various missions. So he's genuinely into his sci-fi as well. In fact, he recommended The Forever War by Joe Haldeman to me, which, if you've not read it and you're a science fiction fan, do get into that, because it's amazing. But yeah, so I can see that people don't like the twin dilemma because they don't think attacking the companion is very doctory. But apart from that, I'm not really sure where the problem is. So it's a bit on the cheap side, because 80s Doctor Who was. But it's and it was, in fact, it was made. My wife tells me this. I don't know if it's true. One of the reasons it's cheap is because it was actually made as the last episode of Peter Davison's series when the money had run out, rather than as the first episode of a Colin Baker series.
Yes.
So, yes. That may be why it looks...
Yeah, it followed straight on from the Caves of Adrazani, which was brilliant. Because I remember watching that thinking, oh, this would be a good story to watch, because then it's a regeneration, then it's like his first one, and then they'd have like the big old break to it. But the problem I had is because I loathed the twin dilemma. Very spirited defense. It has made me think twice. But my main problem was it paling in comparison to possibly the most classic story of the 80s. So coming off of the back of Cage of Adrazani, which had brilliant direction, script, absolutely flawless, didn't miss a beat, and then you get him in that fucking coat, and those twins the twins made me turn off. I barely got 10 minutes into the first episode. I thought, I can't do this. I just can't do this at all. But that has made me quaver. That has made me think twice. Michael, your thoughts on the twin dilemma?
Well, I'm lucky, Alex. I'm lucky. I did not see it right after Caves of Andrazani, so perhaps maybe I would feel like you if I had have done, as it is absolutely one of the greatest Who's. So I'm lucky in that respect that I saw it completely standalone. About 12 years ago, for the very first time, I saw the twin dilemma. So I actually loathe it for its own merits, rather than anything else being clouding my judgment. And it's, I have to say, I don't want this to be deleted. I don't want it to be sent off into space. Space doesn't deserve that. But also, put it If it's going to go anywhere, put it in the same concrete box as Chris Chibnall on a loop. So, no, but here's the thing. It's far from the worst. I don't really recall the story as well as Allan does, but but I've got to say you can't get rid of it because it is Colin Baker's first one. He doesn't know what who or what his doctor is yet, and I don't mean that in the clever writing. I mean he just doesn't know. I mean, literally, no one's figured out what way his doctor's going to go, and there's a really strong argument to say they never figured that out. But that's neither here nor there. I think he's a brilliant actor. I think he's brilliant as the Doctor. Maybe this is not his finest story. This is not his finest representation of the Doctor. But I totally agree with you, Alex. Those twins. You know, when you think about it, like, this is right. Yeah, what's happening in Doctor Who this week? It's twins. Oh, twins are creepy. Yeah, but sometimes they're boring. Sometimes they're just boring twins. Sometimes I've just seen people who look alike and are boring. That's the angle they went with this one. But I do think it should be saved. It's an important historical document. It is Colin Baker's first one. And quite frankly, I love Colin Baker.
If I may interject,
yes, go on.
I would say actually the twins aren't boring. They're irritating. And the thing is, they're child prodigies. And child prodigies are irritating. So in that respect, the actors who are irritating have done a fine job of representing the characters who are irritating.
Okay.
Probably Aldrich, the Peter Davison companion, was child prodigy, but he grated less. I could watch him.
Yeah, but there's only one of him. So if he grated half as much, that's because there's only half as many of him.
That's true. If you can imagine him doubled and two of him being exactly the same, that would turn it up a bit. There is lots to take on with regards to Twin Dilemma. I think the thing I will have to do is watch it solo, just so as I'm not comparing it unfavorably. And the thing I'm taking from this is that Jodie Whittaker is, in many ways, the Colin Baker of New Who. A great actor, massively let down on all fronts. And I think if you were to delete that, then you are erasing a vital, if not negative, part of the history. So I think the impossible has been achieved. You've changed my mind on Twin Dilemma, and I think that it's going to be saved. The Twin Dilemma is in. It's now 2 apiece, 1 story left each. Michael, what's next?
I thought I was definitely going down there.
I've gone. This is my final one. I've gone for an episode that I don't think necessarily people hate it. I think it's worse than that. People don't even register it. People just go, "Oh yeah." Do you know? I've only Doctor Who fans will go, "Yeah, I've only watched that 7 times, so I don't really know it." I think Boomtown is fucking brilliant. Here comes the defense. If you are like me, a fan of classic Who, and I'm not saying I'm let down by New Who. I generally enjoy it, but I don't care. I'm not as invested in New Who as I am in classic Who. I don't love it as much. But Boomtown's got one thing that sort of links it to classic Who, which is it's got a classic Doctor Who monster in it, which is nuclear power. Ooh, we're scared of nuclear power again. Isn't that exciting? That's exciting. It's exciting to be scared of that thing because, this is so long now after Chernobyl. And we saw what happened in Chernobyl. It wasn't that bad. It was fine. We all go over it. So we know nuclear power is 100% safe. So it's good to have it back as a monster. There is another monster in it. Bit more deadly than nuclear power, this monster. This monster is Margaret, the mayor of Cardiff. Now you're scared, okay? Margaret is actually a Slovene. She's building this new nuclear power station in the center of Cardiff. And basically All the plans of it are really bad. They're all wrong. So that means as soon as this reactor is turned on, it will explode. Keep in mind, the rift goes all the way through Cardiff. So that means it'll open up the rift and she'll be able to technically surf her way back to that planet that no one can remember the name of. Let's call it the moon. Now, that seems easy enough. Why didn't they just go with that one? So, Margaret, the mayor of Cardiff, that's why I'm going to start in my defense of Boomtown, which, keep in mind what I've said, is fucking brilliant. She's really funny. She's really funny. I know that people sort of go, oh, the Slitheen were rubbish. Yeah, the Slitheen were rubbish. But one, you get to see one being sad while having a shit. That's a first good thing. She's all sad, going, oh yeah, I used to have brothers. I'm having a shit. It's good. It's good entertainment. You never see the bad person having a shit, and now you do. She's really funny. At one point,
emotional catharsis. Shit.
Right?
Purged inside and out.
Exactly. I am clean. She at one point during the meeting, the grand sort of like unveiling of the nuclear reactor, the nuclear power station, she goes, Cardiff Castle will be demolished and we shall build our nuclear reactor in its place. And it's just said so casually and no one even... I think it's really funny. Yeah, fuck it. It's only Cardiff Castle. It doesn't really matter. Now, here's why I genuinely like this. And I don't just like it. I love it. It's so full of regret. It's really properly heavy. I'd even go to say it's deep, this episode. The story isn't even important. The story's sort of not there. It's all about the set pieces. It's all about the Doctor and it's about the Doctor and the monster sitting down and talking and figuring out whether or not what either of them are doing is the right thing. She's got her so-called reasons for wanting to kill everyone. And he's got his reasons for taking her into justice, knowing she's going to be executed. So that means he is killing her. He's taking her to her death. Just like she was going to kill everyone else, he's doing the same to her. So they sit down and he talks to a monster, or the other way around. And there she is describing her execution to him. And he's still going, yeah, but it's just the way it has to be. And it's just so full of sadness. And the Doctor is, you know, when you see documentaries about police where you sort of think, that's really harsh. Like the way they go in and sort of talk about somebody who's been killed, or even talk to the bereaved people of somebody who's been killed, and everything's almost clinical to the point where you go, oh God, this is this guy's job or this woman's job. And everything they say now is like, well, I'm just telling you the job. There's almost no heart and soul in it. And there's the Doctor. He's gone, yeah, but I have to. So, you know, what's going to happen is what you just said. You are going to have your skin burnt off and you're going to have your head shoved up your arse. And that's just what's happening. And she's going, so you're no better than me. And he's going, well, I am. Debatable. And I really like the payoff. The payoff is, it's not Rose, who is the humanity of the entire show. It's not Rose who basically gives Margaret, the Mayor of Cardiff, a second chance. It's not the Doctor who gives her a second chance. It's the TARDIS. The TARDIS itself gives this person a second chance. And the whole episode is about second chances. Mickey gets a second chance at happiness. And Rose gets a second chance to be with Mickey. She doesn't take it, but she does get it. It's all about second chances. It's all about regret. I think it's I think it's in the top 10 of New Who.
Cool. Well, Alan, with that in mind, Boomtown, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Micheal has definitely zoomed in on the absolute highlight of Boomtown, which is the cafe scene between the Doctor and the Mayor of Cardiff, where they're playing off against each other both physically and mentally. It's like watching a chess game for stupid people, and I very much include myself in that designation. I'm sure if you really, I mean, I know how chess moves, and that's it. If you really understood chess, I'm sure watching chess is fascinating. But for people who don't understand it, and I'm not singling chess out in that respect. Watching any other board game on television, including snooker and bias,
if you really know Kerplunk,
yeah, absolutely. If you were invested to the point where you'd spent your entire life mastering Kerplunk as people master chess, but I haven't done that because I have a low boredom threshold. But that so to see it represented in the form of a mutant and a doctor is great. But that aside, I have to say I find the Slovene one of the most tiresome monsters of New Who, and it's all right. Admittedly, it's mainly the endless bloody fart gags. Which, all right, yeah, okay, they're aimed at the kids. They're not for me. Farting is very slightly.
She does not fart in this episode. She simply has a shit.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
That's a character arc for you, right there.
The costumes are rubbery and goofy in a way that we were supposed to have left behind with Classic Who when we had the budgetary, and they compound that error by adding CGI versions of the rubbery, goofy costumes, which are no better. Mickey, I never really got on with anyway. I think he's quite dull. Although, subsequent companions have shown him up to be actually a much better actor than I gave him credit for in the first place. And yeah, I like Rose. Rose is one of my favourite companions, but I don't know. Boomtown, there's just something forgettable about it. I even, as part of the Bad Wolf arc, the reactor is called whatever the Welsh for Bad Wolf is.
That wasn't a great arc, was it?
Blythe Droog, for some reason. I can't remember facts that are going to be useful to me on a daily basis, but I remember what the Welsh for Bad Wolf is from that episode.
I mean, I can understand them being willing to knock down Cardiff Castle because it was probably built by the English. So,
sure,
fuck it. Yeah. Good. I don't know for a fact, but all the castles up north were built by the English, weren't they? The Ring of Iron put in place by Edward Longshanks to keep the rebellious Welsh under the heel. And that was 800 years ago, and that was the last time the Welsh rebelled. Good work, guys. Nice. We've got Northern Irish chap here. He'll show you how it's done. Bloody hell.
I mean, this was the first series of New Who where it was still finding its feet quite a fair bit. And this was the first sort of like trade-off budgetary episode where they deliberately kept it cheap to make so they could have a load of exploding Daleks in the final. Spoilers. So with that, there was a lot of Russell T Davies innuendo that's creeped in on a lot of occasions. Do you think that had sort of like, did that make it a bit seem out of place with a family sci-fi show? Like before they went off to the cafe, she went, "Oh, dinner and bondage."
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about that bit.
Yeah. So, do you think that he was still sort of like part of his mind was still in queer as folk mode at that point?
I mean, it never gets as bad as the blowjob joke that Michael complained about in Love and Monsters last time. To be fair,
yeah, that's true.
That was
the second series. You'd think he would have gotten better by then.
But the thing is, Eccleston's series as a whole is probably the best single series of New Who to date. And Boomtown represents a nadir for that series, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a nadir for New Who. I mean, it's not up there with Dalek. For some reason, Rob Shearman's only contribution to New Who, Get Him Back.
It's weird, that, right? It's weird, right?
Yeah, very strange. But especially when Neil Gaiman's had 2 goes, and one of them was fucking dreadful. Let's have Rob Shearman back,
really
please.
Bad.
Yeah, please. So
let him be shit.
Yes, let him screw it up properly, having produced one masterpiece. Yeah, but Eccleston is consistently great as the Doctor. You know, so even fantastic. His worst episodes can't get that bad.
No, he delivers and adds something to even the ropiest parts, which somebody with lesser acting chops would struggle with. And there's part of me that really wanted to hate on Boomtown, but I just remember thoroughly enjoying every episode on first transmission. Some of the CGI not worked, not aged as well. But as we said before, like bad CGI and wobbly sets can be forgiven. Time, of course, it's part of the charm. Of course, it's part of the charm.
Yeah.
So
I think without Eccleston, if a guy of Eccleston's serious acting renown hadn't been the first new Doctor, you wouldn't have opened the door then to people like Derek Jacobi and John Hurt and Serena McKellen and people of that quality also coming on board. He kind of led the charge in showing that actually it was all right just to do a silly family show, and it wouldn't necessarily be a ding. And certainly, it's not harmed his career to the extent that being in the god awful adaptation of it was one of my favorite childhood. What's it called? The Dark is Rising. Excellent series of books. Bloody awful film. But he was a dark elf in that, and that's been far more injurious to his credibility than Doctor Who ever was. So.
Probably hence the Big Finish return. No, I'd say there's if it wouldn't have been Eccleston at the time, there was a collective thought about Doctor Who of it still being a bit camp and a bit silly. Probably the memory of the Seventh still in a lot of people's minds. So he did give it a lot of credibility to see what it could be, sort of like back to the original days. I
in combination with Russell T Davies, as a writer,
obviously. Of course. It's there is not a single thing in me that wants to delete this because I enjoyed Eccleston's series as a whole, but also I just love the fact that the irony of Michael picking New Who because he wouldn't care if any of them get deleted, and then having a clean sweep of all of them being saved, I think is a delicious irony on top of all that. So for that reason, as well as everything else, Boomtown is saved. It is not deleted, and that is 3 out of 3 for Michael.
Well played, sir.
Will it be 3-all? Let's see. We've gone to Alan's final choice.
Yes, well, not my choice. Joshua Griggs chose this one. It's The Battle of Ranscore Ave Kool-Aid or something. From it's the finale of Jodie Whittaker's first series of Doctor Who. And as series finales go, it is the most delible. It's the one that leaves least impression in the minds of people who watch it. I think it's fair to say that nobody actually remembers the Battle of Rancid Oak Coke. I can't even remember its bloody title, for God's sake. But
right.
I don't think that's your fault.
No, I know. They were. I don't know. It seems kind of. It's strange. They were obviously going for a name that was supposed to sound extraordinarily alien, and they landed on kind of mid-Arabic.
Yeah.
It sounds like, well, I don't know. It sounds like something out of the Raj to me. Ranscore color something. Anyway, but I think, although it's a forgettable episode, I don't think it's actually a bad episode. It's underwhelming for a series finale, but it's not as the new series. Well, as Jodie Whittaker's unfortunate tenure with bloody Chris Chibnall, the man who's done most harm to the English language since Noah Webster. Since she's taken over, this is certainly one of the more reasonable episodes. It's basically what happens in it is that I've forgotten again. Anyway, something about the yes, right. There's a planet, and on that planet there's a species called the Ux. And the thing about this species is there's only ever 2 of them at any given time. which, you know, is obviously bollocks. That species should have died out millennia ago. What happens, presumably what happens is that the dad the male impregnates the female and then dies so that the female can give birth to a male and a female, and then the female, maybe the kids eat the female and grow immediately to. But what happens if the male dies before impregnating the female, or if the female just has a genetic defect and is born sterile? The whole species, it's complete. It's the worst evolutionary system in the history of the world. I was actually reading a short story yesterday by Kurt Vonnegut called To Be or Not to Be, which is about an Earth which has a perfectly stable population. And in order to have a child, you have to find somebody who volunteers for suicide. And it's like that, but reduced so that there's only ever two at the same. Anyway, but one of the Ucks is played by Phillida Law, is it? No, what's her name? No, what's her name? Phyllis Logan. Yes, thank you. Phyllis Logan, right, who is married to Kevin McNally from The Twin Dilemma. I'm getting a very recursive episode here because we didn't plan this in advance, but also this episode mentions that the TARDIS once turned the Slovene back into an egg. So it's referencing Michael's choices as well, which is a bit spooky. Turns out this episode only makes sense in retrospect once you've seen this show. Isn't that great? But Phyllis Logan, who was, of course, Lady Jane to Ian McShane's Lovejoy, and has aged spectacularly well, presumably partly because she's married to a lovely bloke like Kevin McNally, is one of the Ucks in this. And what the Ucks are doing is they're trying to use their immense psychic powers to turn the planet into a thing. And it turns out that what they're turning the planet into is a weapon, because their religion, such as it is, has been hijacked by Tim Shaw. And Tim Shaw is the Bluetoothy alien from the very first episode who the Doctor sent back in time. And now, because the Doctor didn't deal with it properly, they've now got to do it all over again. Mm-hmm. And Tim Shaw is played by the lovely Sam Oakley, who was on our Doctor Who festival last year. And he's got this brilliant, this very deep, very proper English voice that sounds like a villain voice he's learned from Christopher Lee. And if you talk to him in real life, he actually sounds kind of like a nice Danny Dyer. He's very cockney, very chirpy, lovable. "Hi, Mary Poppins, hi!" kind of voice. So it's a lovely performance from him. And basically, so one of the running dramatic themes of this episode is that Tim Shaw is back, and Tim Shaw killed Bradley Walsh's wife, Grace. So Bradley Walsh is all up in his revenge, and he's going to kill Tim Shaw. So it sees some conflict between Bradley Walsh and Jodie Whittaker. And as we've already mentioned, those are the two best actors on the TARDIS crew. So seeing some dramatic conflict between them is actually one of the better acted moments in the whole of the new series. And of course, Yaz has nothing to do because there's too many companions. And of course, Tosin Cole still can't fucking act. So whenever he's on the screen, it drags the whole proceedings down into molasses of bullshit. But if you ignore those two flaws, because they're present in every episode of not just this one of Jodie Whittaker, then I think what we're left with is an episode that's got a good supporting cast in the form of Bradley and Phyllis Logan, not Phillida Law, who's not in it. I don't know why I mentioned it. Sorry about that. She's in Peter's Friend. So you've got good supporting cast. You've got a plot that makes some sort of sense and calls back to earlier moments in the series, and has character motivation driving Bradley Walsh's character, which is lovely. So I think Joshua has picked very much the wrong game. I would rather be forced to sit down and write out the name of the Battle of Ravskut until I remember it, rather than watch Arachnids in the UK again once. So I think this is a poor choice of worst Jodie episode. Certainly it's not her strongest, again, as with the Twin Dilemma, but it's not the worst that could ever. You could be forced to watch bloody Demons of the Punjab again, which is that rarest of things in Chris Chibnall's tenure, a reasonable script let down by shitty acting. So, yeah, the Battle of Ranskorav Pavlov. Yeah, it's okay. I like it.
Okay, so with that in mind, Michael, your thoughts? Should we delete it? Should we save it?
Right. Well, I've got a question really for Alan. Why do you think? Why don't we remember this episode? I mean, I've definitely seen it. I know I've seen it because it exists. So therefore, I have seen it. There's no way before you started speaking, I could have told you a single thing about that episode. And if you just told me the title and you didn't say it's in Jodie Whittaker's era or whatever, I would literally have gone, well, it must be a Big Finish or something like that. I mean, something I just don't know about.
Do you know, I think it's the writing. Honestly, I do, because I've just suddenly remembered right now that Mark Addy is in it and makes a very good fist of his part. And I watched this yesterday, and it had completely slipped my mind until just this moment that Mark Addy is rather good in it. And I think it's the fact that the writing is so. I think the thing about this one is that the writing isn't actually as bad as Chris Chibnall is capable of making. He's kind of, because it's the season finale, he's pulled out all the stops and he's elevated his dialogue and his descriptions and his interplay between the characters. He's elevated all of that to the best of his limited ability, and it's risen to such a state that instead of being objectionable, it is forgettable. I think that's what's happened. Chris Chibnall, writing at his peak, delivers a journalistic sort of writing that you can wrap your fish and chips in and then throw away afterwards. I honestly think that's what's happened here. He's turned in a script so bland and forgettable for the finale that you don't even remember to hate it. It just goes instantly out of your mind. It's like if his script editors for this episode were the Silence.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I do remember feeling badly let down because I had high hopes for Jodie's first season, and then I remember enjoying like the previous season finale of the Cybermen with Peter Capaldi, and thinking, well, if it's going to be on a par with that, and look at the guest cast, and you're right to say that it was just so forgettable, and I just felt like I'd been on a really, really bad date with somebody whose Tinder profile made it seem so much more exciting beforehand. That's sort of like that's. It's not even hatred; it's sort of an emptiness. Like, oh, I had such high hopes for this. So to me, that story is like the Rishi Sunak of Doctor Who. Whereas in the context of everything else being a bit shit, it stands out. But in history, you think, all right, yeah, fine. With everyone else in the cabinet, he looks good. But historically, he wouldn't last 5 minutes in any other government. He'd be the crap one. If you know what I mean. If I torture, I'm going to stop torturing
I think that's why it would be foolish to delete this episode, because nobody would notice. Nobody would notice that you'd saved 40 minutes by deleting it. And furthermore, it's a new Who episode. There are, it's only 45 minutes long. You could delete an entire old Who, like The Dominators, and get 6 times the saving for your money, instead of deleting something that people are going to forget was ever deleted in the first place.
I like the fact that I mentioned the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and now you're appealing to me on a financial level.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I'm adapting my argument to my audience.
And is that really grounds to save an episode of Doctor Who, as if like nobody would notice if you deleted it?
Yeah, I think that's what the BBC were doing all those years ago. God, this will really piss off middle-aged men in the next century. But whereas exactly. I mean, we you can talk about forgettable Doctor Who. I am well aware that Boomtown might fall into that. I disagree. I think it's wonderful. But
no, I liked it.
But even I don't think there's another Who that you could give me the title of. Don't test me on this. That you could give me the title of, and I could go, I could not tell you a thing about this. At least I'd have some idea.
I think
in many ways that's incredible.
It is.
That's a hell of an achievement.
I think to sum up what we said earlier.
Come on, this is possibly the only science fiction show Chris Chibnall has ever written, which is basically fine. It's the best he's capable of doing. It would be cruel to the man.
Now,
while he's living in his concrete box at the bottom of the ocean, at least he can console himself with the thought that he once wrote the Battle of Rooster on Concrete, the episode of Doctor Who that nobody remembered to complain about.
That's it. He finally got to the heady height of forgettable rather than fucking appalling.
Now, with that in mind, and everything that we said earlier about arachnids in the UK and why that had to be saved, if I was to delete this episode now, that would completely undo why we saved arachnids in the UK. Of it's forgettable, it's awful, but it can't be deleted because it has to serve as a reminder of how not to go that low ever again. Henceforth, known as the Chibnall defence. And for that reason, why I can't contradict earlier, it has to be saved as well as a warning from history. For that,
and don't forget the John Keats defence.
What's the John Keats defence?
The John Keats defence is from Ode to Melancholy, when he says melancholy can only be truly appreciated by he whose crushed joys grape against his palate fine. The John Keats defence is, without things that were truly shit, how could we appreciate the brilliant?
Interchangeable with what is the Chibnall defence. So for
exactly.
that, it is a clean sweep all round, even scores, tied, 3 saved apiece. So congratulations, gents. Very nice.
Well played, Michael.
Spirited defensing. So before we a lovely virtual handshake there. Nice. Something which will let's preserve that as well, because that'll become a thing of the past from the 21st of June. Virtual handshakes. That, and with any luck, the StreamYard 30-second countdown will never be heard from again. So
when you were talking about them deleting the old archives, I was wondering maybe if they just employed a researcher to go through all the files in the BBC and go, oh, Savills touched that one. Savills touched that one.
Yeah, that researcher, she knew. She knew. Never said anything. So before we wrap up, just going to say, gents, if you've got anything to plug, even if it is just your socials, that now is the time. Michael?
Yeah, I've definitely got something to plug. It's a podcast, and it's called Famous for 15 Quid. I'm in it. Dan Mursh's in it. Paul Litchfield's in it. And we, 3 plucky friends, we recently... although we knew about, those websites where you can get celebrities to do video greetings, to go, hey, I'm that guy that was in that one show once. Happy birthday to your nan. We got in heavily into those websites. I mean, obsessively, like repeat texts at 3 a.m. in the morning, all that stuff. And we decided, well, let's do a podcast where it's a game show based on Cameo and those celebrity greetings.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's 3 guys fucking about, if you can imagine such a thing.
Nice. And Alan?
Do you know, Erica will love that. She quite often will sit there on the couch scrolling through Cameo and just go, oh my God, Justin Wonder Thighs from the Big Brother 21 is charging 37 quid for a Cameo message. That's fantastic.
It is amazing the people that you forget. Like Do you remember the muscly man who played saxophone continually throughout the 80s? He was in so many music
Bob
videos.
Holmes.
Yeah, that guy. He basically had his shirt off and he had muscles and he had his hair slicked back and he played the saxophone. And he lived in the 80s, and you just assume that's where he still is. He's still in the 80s, trying to get out of the 80s. And then all of a sudden you find him on camera and you go, that's what he's doing now. He's saying happy birthday, Nana, for us for £42.80.
Nice. Very nice.
Good fun.
Cool.
So the only thing I've got to plug is that the Ram Festival, Derby Comedy Festival, will be happening online in May. Is it May the 8th?
Yes. So and 27th of May until the 6th of June.
Wow. There we go. 27th May to the 6th of June. There is going to be one session dedicated to remembering Rick Mail. I'm going to be involved in that. Robin Ince is going to be involved in that. We'll probably ask Michael as well if he's free to share something about Robin. I'm sure you enjoy Rick Mail, don't you? So
yeah, you could say that.
Yeah,
sweet.
Yeah, everybody does.
Okay,
so that's the next time you'll
Yes, there'll be plugs and links and things. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll be the world's last online-only comedy festival. So this time next year, back in the real world. So thank you, gents, for your spirited defence, and we will now go to what will be some very clever doctoring to make the closing credits spelled correctly. See if you can spot
doctoring. Do you see what he did there?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Now I get slick. Yeah. Okay. See if you can spot them.